What's up, everybody? This is your boy AJ Trip, and welcome to the World According to Me. This edition, we're going to be talking about the college football playoff and why I think it should expand to 8 teams and then eventually to 16 teams. This comes up because earlier this week, during Big Ten Media Day, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh said that the college football players should expand from 4 to 8, and then to 16 teams. And this has been a consternation between college football fans, I think, across the country, because I think there are some who think 4 is great, and they feel that way because, or at least at least some of the opinions that they give is that the regular season matters, and you won't, and you probably will get more than likely or not, you will get the best 2 teams playing for the national championship. And I understand that. My view and a lot of other people's view feels that an 18-team playoff, for instance, would do the same thing. And and a 16-team playoff could do the same thing as well. So I got 2 articles here. I got one article for and the one article against, and then at the end I am going to give you my reasons why. So let's start with the 4. This comes from the Detroit Free Press. And it says here, Jim Harbaugh is absolutely right. College football playoff needs to expand, and not by a little. The Michigan coach said Monday at the Big Ten Media Luncheon in Chicago that the FBS playoff needs to grow from its current format, 4 teams, to 16 teams. Thoughts on the playoff system? Harbaugh said, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is more would be better in the playoffs. 4 in right now. Let's go to 8 and then eventually get to 16. That was the boldest statement among the 7 coaches who spoke Monday. Jim pointed to how the football championship subdivision playoff model has been successful. The FCS is a true tournament feel and has grown from its initial 4 teams in 1978 to 24 teams since 2013. But beyond citing any existing model, Harbaugh is right on a gut level. College football is one of the highlights of our national sports calendar. So what's wrong with making it last longer and making it mean more? Name me one tournament in major sports that isn't great. And for anyone ready to mount an argument about supposedly watering down the regular season, save it. Because after all, we wouldn't want to water down a season at a place like Georgia, who plays 2 of its first 3 games against juggernauts like Austin Peay and Middle Tennessee. Even if the CFP grew to 16 teams, it would only mean 12% of the 129 teams in FBS would make the tournament. That's a tiny number compared to 38%, or 12 of the 32 teams that make the NFL playoffs. First-year Nebraska coach Scott Frost, who was on board with expanding the CFP, although he prefers 8 teams that would consist of Power 5 conference champions and 3 at-large teams. Frost gave a very detailed explanation of what he liked about the evolution of the national championship format since 1997. That's the year he was Nebraska's quarterback and saw the Cornhuskers and Michigan both finish undefeated and split the mythical championship because they weren't a part of the Bowl Alliance and couldn't play each other. Obviously, that changed since the BCS happened and the best 2 got to play, Frost said. I thought that was an improvement. Getting it to 4 teams is an improvement, but it's hard to look at last year's college football season and not feel like an 18-team playoff is where we should go, and that will always be my opinion. Last year, Frost coached Central Florida to a 12-0 record, but the Knights didn't earn a spot in the CFP despite being the only undefeated FBS team. I think it should be the 5 conference championships 5 conference champions, and 3 at-large teams, Frost said. That would give a surprise conference championship that plays well at the end of the season a shot. It might give a team like we had at UFC last year a shot. I think if you can start I think you can start the playoff earlier in December and not have to make the semifinal bowl experience, like a bowl experience. That would allow the season to end about the same time it does with the national championship game. I don't think it takes away from the regular season and the importance of those games. As great as the evolution of the playoffs has been, I'm always going to be an advocate for 8 teams. Penn State coach James Franklin was the strongest opponent of expanding the playoffs, mostly for practical reasons regarding the length of the season. People talk about expanding the playoffs and things like that. I'm not on the same page with that, Franklin said. This game, we started out playing 10 games, then we went to 11, then 12, and now with the playoffs, you're taking 15 games. That's a lot of games. We haven't expanded the rosters. Franklin said he likes the current system, though he did lobby for one change: uniformity. I think one of the things I think is probably the biggest challenge with the system that we're in is it's subjective. And I think whenever you have a subjective system like we do, you want to control as many of the variables as you possibly can. The same rules for every FBS team, including the same number of conference games, whether FBS teams can play FCS or not, and the same number of out-of-conference games against Power 5 teams. So I think we can control some of the variables that's going to allow people to have a very talented job already. It's going to help them. So when they're comparing one program to another, one conference to another, some things like that don't have to be factored in. And with that last part, I think one of the last parts, the biggest thing, the author of this article made a point earlier. A lot of teams will, before they start their thing, they will put on cupcakes. They will put on cupcakes. Like you said, Georgia played Austin Peay in Middle Tennessee. And one of the things here in Chicago on the radio, they've been talking about how Alabama, before their homecoming game, they play teams like Alabama A&M and Georgia Southern, these FCS schools that they run the score up on so much in the first half that the second half they have to cut down the thing. They make the quarters 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes, and it's a running clock. So I mean, all of it's stupid, and it's so it really is. Yeah, they had a little bit of the strongest opponent, James Franklin. I would agree with that, but again, I'm going to give my thoughts at the end. Now, let's talk about just to hear from somebody who doesn't think the college football players should be expanded. Now, this was not written. That was written recently, as we talked about earlier this week, July 23rd. This was actually written back in January of this year, January 9th, 2018. So, and both of these links will be down in the description box. So if you want to read them yourself, you can. So let's read this one. This is from like the Tenation Online. Alabama defeated Georgia Monday night to win the college football national championship. Many have argued that the Crimson Tide should not have been selected to the 14 playoff, advocating for Ohio State, Southern California, or even UCF instead. Because of this debate, many have stated that they think expanding the playoff will solve these debates and will give more teams a chance to win. However, expanding the playoff should not happen because it doesn't solve this issue. It just rewards less deserving teams. The talk of expanding the playoffs have been inevitable since the college football player took over the BCS. Eventually, somebody was going to be upset because they got left out, and when they thought they deserved to be in. This was the first year that scenario arose, and it won't be the last. Ohio State finished 5th in the college football rankings, and his argument was that a conference championship and had more quality wins than Alabama. Alabama wasn't a conference champion, and his best win was either a fringe top 25 Mississippi State or a Florida State team that lost its quarterback for the season against Alabama and won 7 games. Ohio State beat Penn State and Michigan State and won the Big Ten. On the other hand, Ohio State lost to Iowa, which went 4-5 in the Big Ten by 31 points. The Buckeyes played Oklahoma at home early in the season and lost by 15 in a game that wasn't as close as the score indicated. Alabama only lost once to its rival, Auburn, by 12 on the road. The debate can go on, and there's pros and cons to each team. There isn't necessarily a wrong answer to which team should have been fourth. At the end of the day, neither team truly deserved to make the playoff, but one of them had to be chosen. The committee chose the better team over the more deserving team, which almost seemed like a punishment to the number one team, Clemson. Expanding the playoff to 8 teams would include, including every Power 5 conference champion, one Group of 5 team, and 2 at-large teams. This year, there were only 3 teams deserving of the playoff. So why would you answer the question by adding 4 spots to the equation? That's like curving a test, which is cool for the students. But there's a reason it doesn't usually happen. I don't have any interest in seeing Sam Darnold throw 4 interceptions against Georgia, or UCF talk themselves up because, well, I'm not sure why, and then go and get steamrolled by Clemson. The system isn't broke, so don't fix it. No matter how many teams make the playoffs, there's always going to be debate. They have it every year in the NCAA tournament, but nobody complains about expanding that. If you expand to 8 teams, why don't you just expand to 16, 32? Where do you draw the line? If an 18-team playoff this year, who would the 8 teams have been? Auburn, TCU, Penn State, Miami, Wisconsin. Auburn lost 3 games, 2 of them the playoff teams, but also beat Alabama and Georgia. But would they really let a 3-loss at-large team in the playoff? Wisconsin played a high school schedule. Wisconsin, by the way, is the biggest. They may be the biggest, person, the biggest team to do all of that stuff. They don't play nobody. They play nobody at the beginning of their schedule, and then they go into the Big Ten schedule. So, they're one of the biggest teams. But let's get back to the story. Wisconsin played a high school schedule, but only lost once to Ohio State in a close game. TCU got blasted by Oklahoma twice. Penn State is probably the most deserving team, but they finished tied for second in their division. You can't look at me and tell me any of those teams deserve another chance at the national championship. There's no better answer for the 8th team in this scenario than there is for the Alabama-Ohio State debate. The best part of college football is the regular season. Every single game matters if you want to win the national championship. If you expand to an 18-team playoff, the regular season loses a lot of its luster. Non-conference games don't matter because all you had to do is win the conference. In 2015, USC played the Pac-12 championship game with an 8-4 record. If they had won, do you want to see them compete against the Alabamas and Clemsons of the world? I don't. A 4-loss team in the playoffs. Hard pass. I don't think I want to see a 3-loss team in the playoffs either. Why did they lose 3 games? They can't be that good if they lost 3 games. But if you expand the playoff, you will have a 3-loss team competing for a national championship more often than not. Watch the games. The semifinals and championship games have been instant classics every year. Clearly the system isn't broke. Don't fix it. So now I'm going to give my opinion. And here's what I would say about this. I hate this narrative that expanding the playoffs will make the regular season doesn't matter. That's total bullshit. That's total bullshit. Okay? Because again, and we brought this up the time before, if the regular season matters, why are teams playing teams from another division? Why is Alabama playing Georgia Southern? Why is Wisconsin playing New Hampshire? I think that's so much of a false narrative that if you do that, the regular season doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. One of the best things I've heard of, one of the reasons why that you wouldn't expand the playoffs is that Maria Taylor, who is a college football sideline reporter for ESPN, she said on Get Up yesterday that if you expand the playoffs, these players who are going to go to the NFL, who are not getting paid, could twist an ankle, turn an ankle, and then what would happen to them in their future? Because and she's right. Because right now we have in the last couple of years we've had these athletes sit out bowl games because they didn't want to hurt themselves going into the NFL season the way Jalen Smith did for the linebacker for Notre Dame a couple years ago in a bowl game against Ohio State, and almost basically has ruined his career. You know, he's got back on the field and he's played, and 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 I think if he doesn't play another down again, you know, at least he didn't leave the field. He didn't leave the field on the stretcher, you know, something like that, and that's good and dandy. But I'm having some work done on my stove, so I'll be back. Like I said, I'm gonna just gotta do what you gotta do, then I'll get back to my thoughts. So I apologize for that. I had need some work done with my stove, and I kind of told them to come during a certain time, and they came earlier. So anyway, let's get back to what we was talking about with this, and I think I was on the part of Maria Taylor and what she said, right? About and about what I feel that she had the best talk against expanding the playoffs, which was that we now see these athletes who now they sit out bowl games so that they don't get hurt. Jalen Smith who got injured for Notre Dame, who got injured against the bowl game against Ohio State. So you know that might be maybe the strongest argument for not doing that. But I still say there's still a certain way that you can get through all of this stuff and everything like this. Now, I would be okay with an 18 playoff. I personally think 16-team playoff is best because I think that's the most fair. Now, we talking about the Power 5 conferences, right? Well, see, I think that's one of the things that I really hate, and this has been going on since the BCS. So when you're talking about the at that time it was the six. There were six of them, but now it's now the Power 5 conferences, right? Where now, you know, and that the other conferences just don't matter, and that's one of these that can talk about UCF because you know they just don't matter in the whole big scheme of things when it comes to college football. So for me, there are 10 conferences. So you know, and just like the NCAA basketball, you would have 10. You'd have 10 conference champions. You have 10 conference championship games, and then you'd have 10 conference champions. No doubt about it. Those 10 would automatically get in. Then you'd have 6 at-large bids. 6 at-large bids for people for other people in those conferences, and for teams for like Notre Dame and Army and Navy and BYU, the independents of the world. You'd have at-large bids for those teams, and then you'd have the committee get those at-large teams and then reseed and make 1 through 16, and then just what you have a playoff. That's the best one. Now, as I say, that's the best way to go about it. I know that's not going to happen. I know that's not going to happen because of the way they feel about the non-Power 5 conferences. They look down upon them, and it's so disgusting to do that. I know that's not never going to happen. So I've kind of put that out of the range. But I think that yes, you have to get a you have to do an 18 playoff at the very least. You have to do an 18 playoff at the very least. And what these people have said, I think, is the right. You would do the Power 5 conferences, championship, these Power 5 conference champions. And then what you would either do 3 at-large bids, or you would do the one group of 5 thing, the one group of 5 that they do right now. The highest ranked team of the other group of 5, as they like to say, gets put into the New Year's Six. So they like the New Year's Six bowl. They get one of the spots in the New Year's Six bowl. So then that's what I would do. So then and that's how I would do it. I would do it that way. I would do the and then have that to make sure that we have an underdog to root for, because that's one of the reasons why we love the NCAA tournament, right? You know, the underdog, Loyola Chicago, right here in my hometown city, made it to the Final Four. You know, as the underdog, and many people were rooting for him because we like the underdog story. We want an underdog story in college football. So why not? So I think you have to do the group of five, and then you have to do an at-large bid, two at-large bids. So I think that's the way. I think that's the way you have to do it. You do all of that. You reseed them, and then you go about it with 18 game playoff. Now, as you talk about other things, I think there are a lot of other things too as well. I like what James Franklin was talking about, making it uniform. I definitely think that's what you got. I think one thing you have to do is you have to get rid of teams playing FCS teams. No, you can't. No. No. And you know, if you want to play an FCS team, you do it in the preseason. You do it in the preseason. Do it in August. Play an FCS team in August. You don't do it in the regular season. No more. No more of that. That's one. Two. Yes, you have to make every team. You have to make every Power 5 conference the same. I think right now, at the moment, I think the Big Ten has 14 teams, right? The Big Ten and the SEC have 14 teams. The 14 teams. The Pac-12 has 12 teams. The Big 12 has 8 teams. What's the other one? What's the other conference? Is it the ACC? The ACC, I think, has 12 teams. So let's make this unilateral. Let's either make this where each conference needs 14 teams, or each conference needs 12 teams, and some of these other teams need to move to other conferences. So let's make that unilateral. And then when you do it that way, you make it so that they play the same amount of games. I would say you make it that so that all the teams, they play 10 games. They play 10 games. They play two out of conference games. And then they play 8 in conference games. So for instance, let's say that we make it uniform, right? We make it uniform, and each conference has 12 teams in it. There will be 6 in each division. So what you would do is you would play the 5 teams in your division. You would play 3 teams in a rotating spot from the other division. Those would be your 8 conference games. And then you would play 2 out of conference games. So one of those games would have to be a team from. It would have to be a team from the Power 5, meaning that you can play Middle Tennessee State, or you can't play Tulane, right. Even though we want to see that. So what I mean is you can play Middle Tennessee State, or you can play Tulane, but then you also have to play someone like you have to play Oklahoma, or you have to play Ohio State, or you have to play this, or you have to play that. So we can make that uniformity. And if you played a non-Power 5 conference, it is always on the road. Always. You don't play them at home. If you are in the Power 5 conference and you want to play you want to schedule a non-Power 5 conference team as your as your as one of your non-conference games, it always is on the road. Always, always on the road. So I think that's the I think, and so then you have 10 games. Then you have the conference championship game. That would be 11. You know, right? So if you have 10 games, if you throw in a bye, 10 games, that's going to end around Thanksgiving. That's still going to end around Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving will still be that right now. That's what Thanksgiving right now is right now like that. Thanksgiving Saturday is the like the last week of the season, and it still can be the last week of the season. And then that next week, that next Saturday, is a conference championship game. Which, by the way, the Army Navy game has to stop playing on that Saturday. Okay, that has to go to that last Saturday before Thanksgiving. Even though we can have some snow games like we had, I think we had this past one. That was a good snow game this past year, or it was 2 years ago maybe. But the snow game. But still, we have to put that in on that Thanksgiving Saturday. I'll deal without the snow game. The conference championship game has to be that next Saturday afterwards, and then we start the playoffs. We start the playoffs on these December Saturdays. You know, we go 8, and then we get down to 4. We do the 8 one, and then we do the 4 one, and then what we have then after we do the 4, obviously the semifinals. Now we have the final 2, and now after we do that, now once we get the final 2 players into the championship game, now we do the bowls, and we select the bowls, and I think that's the way we do it. That's the way we do it, or at least we select the since we get 8 so 8 teams. So we do we'd have to get rid of the New Year's 6, I guess. We have to get rid of the New Year's 6 and just make it the New Year's 4. 4 bowls. So that's for those 8 teams. Or maybe we can still do the New Year's 6. Who knows? Who knows? But you guys get the drift. So that now we get the national championship game set. We still get the bowls and everything like that. And these students aren't these quote unquote students aren't playing the long seasons that these people are worried about them playing. So that's how you do it. So again, once again, because I think I was with everything that's going on with having to have somebody come check on my stove and everything like that. I got some of my my things wrapped up. So once again, let me see if I can make it more clear and concise for everybody to understand. So let's get uniformity within the Power 5 conferences. Whether it's 12 teams or it's 14 teams, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, the ACC, and the Pac-12, or what would be Pac-14, they all have the same thing. They all are either 12 teams or they're all 14 teams. We have a 10-game schedule where you would play 8 teams in your conference. You would play 2 non-conference games. If you choose to have one of those non-conference games be against a non-Power 5 conference team, it must be on the road. Okay? So then after you play your 10 games, then of course we have the conference championship Saturday, where you would have the conference championship games. And then once you have that, you'd have those 5 conference championship winners automatically make it into the college football playoff. You'd have 2 at-large bids for other teams that you may think are deserving. If you think that Michigan is deserving, but because Michigan is in the same division as Ohio State, and Ohio State beat Michigan, and then they beat, let's just say, Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Michigan's got that one loss to Ohio State, then you can take Michigan or anything else, right? But to round out the full 8, that other large bid is part of the group of the other 5 conferences. The highest ranked team that the committee will rank, well, that's going to be the team that goes into that selected at large slot. So then you have your 8-team playoff, and then once you do your 18 team playoff, you would start it, and then once on one Saturday, and then the next Saturday you would do the obviously the semifinals, and then once you get that down to, then the next week you would select the bowl games, all the way through, and then you would start the bowl season, and then we would have the national championship game, like obviously like the second or the first, whenever it would start in January. So I think that's a perfect scenario. I think that's a perfect scenario of how this college football playoff should go. Honestly, right now they can't do nothing about it right now because it is in a contract state. But I really do think this is the way to go. And I do not agree with everything that they're talking about with how it's going to ruin the regular season and it's not going to make it. No, it's not. So I've laid it out for you how you could make this even more even better for fans and teams and make it more fair. So I've laid it out for you guys. So if you are a college football fan, post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think. Are you guys a fan of the system it is right now? Would you like to see it expand to 8 teams? Would you like to see it be even more fair, expand to 16 teams? Do you have any thoughts about how you would like to see it go about if it did change? Post all your comments down in the comment section. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is your boy AJ Trips signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there. And I am out.